Welcome back to the channel, guys. Tonight we're going to be looking at a conspiracy theory involving the most famous man in all of history, Jesus Christ. And to start it all off, I'll begin by presenting three paintings of two crucial moments in his life, which are his baptism and his subsequent crucifixion. I will do my best to explain the view held by conspiracy theorists and of the opposing view of experts. Then I will explain my position and why I believe that the view held by conspiracy theorists is nothing more than speculation. Enough said, let's explore this conspiracy. The first painting appears to depict the baptism of Jesus Christ being aided by bright streams of light emanating from an object hovering in the sky above the scene. Conspiracy theorists believe that this unknown object looks exactly like the UFOs that are being reported in modern times, thus adding more credence to their theory that extraterrestrials are not only visiting us today, but have visited Earth in the distant past. Skeptics, however, believe that the artist was only attempting to capture the Bible verse of Matthew 3:16, which reads, "As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water, and at that moment heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him." But does this explanation do enough to cast doubt upon what conspiracy theorists believe to be an obvious representation of a UFO? According to conspiracy theorists, the answer to that question is no. It seems to them to be an attempt to explain away the obvious, which they believe to be that the artist was portraying a UFO. This second image is a depiction of Jesus at his crucifixion. It doesn't take long before you notice something strange. In it, two unidentified flying objects appear to be thrusting away from the scene on either side of the mortally wounded Jesus Christ. This is something very strange indeed. One might even say alien. How is it possible that a pre-flight civilization could depict what appears to be flying objects? Is the artist trying to tell us that flying saucers were present at the death of Jesus? Historians, as you can guess, object to this view. They believe that these unknown objects are nothing more than representations of angels. Conspiracy theorists are not convinced by this. They argue that if the blobs were in fact supposed to be angels, they would have been drawn as having wings, resembling angelic figures. Let's take a look at this last image I have for you guys tonight. In this painting, we see two more unknown objects. The artist portrays them being inhabited by human-like figures, or maybe extraterrestrials. Extraterrestrials flying in the skies in what seems to be UFOs or space capsules. Could this be true? Well, not according to skeptics, who believe that this is a representation of the sun and moon. The artist depicts a scene from Luke that states, "It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. While the sun's light failed, the curtain of the temple was torn in two." End quote. They believe that the faces in these celestial bodies were not out of the ordinary, since this was a common depiction during this time period. Again, conspiracy theorists differ in opinion, believing that these were indeed flying crafts, and that the faces likely mean that these crafts were piloted by people or extraterrestrial beings. The Ancient Alien website goes so far as to say that these beings seem to play a central role in the event, and that they must have been part of the crucifixion story, at least as it was taught by the Georgian Orthodox Church. Is it possible that extraterrestrials were present at the baptism and crucifixion of Jesus? Well, I don't believe so, and I want to point out a few things that I believe call into question the conclusions held by conspiracy theorists. While the scholarly consensus has no bearing on truth, one must expect that individuals who decide to challenge this consensus should provide sufficient reason to do so. This leads right into my first point, which is that they fail to present any good evidence. Conspiracy theorists might rely on, well, these objects look similar to the UFOs or crafts we see today, so the artist was probably aware of these same objects and drew them because they were present. But this is simply not good enough. You cannot assume a conclusion because it looks right to you. You must provide the evidence. So this argument of, well, it looks like a UFO, so it's probably a UFO, is nothing more than an attempt to squeeze in an assertion while lacking any true evidence. They might also say, well, other civilizations in ancient times drew similar strange objects in the sky, so it's possible that extraterrestrials could have been present with these people, including at the baptism and crucifixion of Christ. However, attempting to raise the probability of an extraterrestrial presence in this way doesn't work. Conspiracy theorists have failed to provide sufficient evidence for these other circumstances in which they believe that flying crafts were supposedly present with these other people of antiquity. So why should we believe them this time? Using controversial beliefs to substantiate other controversial beliefs does not improve probability. The second thing I'll point out is that I highly doubt that the Catholic Church would allow artists to draw UFOs next to Jesus. Italian art historian Diego Cuji, and I apologize if I butchered his name, says that most of the crucifixions done in the Byzantine style show the same objects on either side of the cross. They are the sun and the moon, often represented with a human face or figure. Cuji points out that those who consider such symbolic elements as representations of alien spacecraft assume that an Italian artist of the 15th century or an anonymous Byzantine painter would actually be allowed to insert any non-canonical or uncodified elements into a religious representation. On the contrary, in past times the commissioners would have never allowed the author to insert into a work of art anything other than what they previously decided, especially in the case of religious subjects." End quote. I know that today's Christians are far more open to the idea of extraterrestrials, but the Catholic Church during this period would have been far more reluctant to allow, let alone accept, such a view. And that is to say that if these artists actually were depicting alien spacecraft, the church might have accused them of heresy, and might have even burned them at the stake, as in the case of Giordano Bruno, who suffered this fate for maintaining unorthodox ideals. This conservative Christian environment, I believe, would be unlikely to allow such a thing, making the belief that these objects represent spacecraft far less probable than conspiracy theorists would like to admit. The last thing we should know is the dating of these paintings, which I believe should lead us to conclude that we cannot use them as evidence, or at least not very good evidence. The first painting I presented, which shows the baptism of Jesus, dates to the year 1710. The ministry of John the Baptist is thought to have started between the years 26 and 29 CE, with the baptism of Jesus shortly after. So the artist is painting a scene thought to have taken place 1681 to 1684 years before his own time. Material this removed from the actual events is just too unreliable and therefore cannot be used to good effect. In my last video, titled Birth Story of Noah Discovered in the Book of Enoch, I speak about how ancient astronaut theorists try to use material dating thousands of years after the purported events to come to surprising conclusions. So this type of sloppy work is not uncommon among them. It's almost like they try to find anything in any time period from various fields of science and throw it all at the wall and pray that it sticks. The other paintings I've presented suffer from the same issues of late dating. The second image, showing Jesus at his crucifixion, dates to the 14th century, while the third is dated to the 11th century. All three images dating far from the events they depict. The evidence required for this conspiracy theory to be true just isn't there. But if I missed something, let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button so we can grow. Until next time, it's your host, Mr. Vice. Peace.